Listen lads, this is not a Steam Deck killer, but at the same time it absolutely is. Let me explain. So, this is the Odin2 Portal by Odin. It is a super powerful Android handheld with incredible Wi-Fi and an unbelievably beautiful screen. Matter of fact, this just might be the very best OLED screen that I've ever seen. So, right now I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth with everything set to Ultra at 1080p native, 120 FPS. And I have like zero latency. All the while not using any battery or producing any heat really. So, if you're like me and you've had your Steam Deck in your shopping cart for months at this point, but never really pulled the trigger because you fear you're going to end up playing in bed mostly at home, this is the device for you. Not a Steam Deck killer, and that's the point. The Odin2 Portal isn't in direct competition to a Steam Deck, because it doesn't want to be. The Steam Deck is trying to be a whole-sized PC you can hold in your hands. The Odin just wants to let your actual PC do the work while you lie down like a modern Roman emperor and vibe. What is the Odin2 Portal? It is an Android handheld with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, still one of the very best Android chips on the market. The base version comes with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, with the option to expand the storage via microSD card up to 1TB. And the base version is the one that I recommend for this scenario. It has this great chip to do Android gaming and retro console emulation, both of which it does very well. If you want to play some PlayStation 3 on the go, this has the power needed. But I won't talk about that here, this video is all about streaming. And yes, you can obviously also stream emulated games, all the way up to and including the Nintendo Switch, with better performance than native hardware. Obviously I can't show any of that here, but rest assured, Tears of the Kingdom runs better and looks better than the 20fps 720p mess on the actual Switch. For more information about emulation, go watch the amazing video Retro Gamecore made on the subject. Okay, back on track. It has an 8000 mAh battery that lasts forever if you use the device for streaming. More than 12 hours on a single charge while running maximum brightness, full resolution and 120Hz. It charges at a solid 27 watts. You won't have to wait too long between sessions. Matter of fact, I've yet to get the device below 60% battery, and I use it a few hours every single day and charge it maybe once a week. It has the capability of outputting 4K 60 through its USB-C port, so you can hook this up to a TV and PC game on a large screen without moving your actual PC. The speakers are disappointing. The Odin has two front-facing speakers that had me hopeful, but sadly, they're tiny, tinny, and they just sound bad. Luckily, we get an aux jack and Bluetooth 5.3, so what I've been doing is hooking up in-ear monitors or AirPod Pros. It has, and that's the highlight of the device, an insanely crisp 7-inch 1080p Full HD OLED screen with beautiful colors, almost no bezel. It runs at 120Hz and gets hella bright. Bright enough to game outside in direct sunlight. Of course, the weather wouldn't play along while I was recording this, and it was cloudy. But I have used this device in direct sunlight, and it's more than acceptable. You can clearly see the reflections on the screen that come from having an all-glass front, but you can also see the Odin still shining through the reflections and being perfectly legible. And it has the kind of haptics that don't feel like a vibrating toothbrush. The vibration motors are actually good. Not the best I've ever felt, and not on par with a full-size current-gen controller, but better than the Nintendo Switch, and actually quite nice. The controls, on the other hand, are spot on. The face buttons feel great, the D-pad is one of my all-time favorites hands down. The shoulder buttons are a bit quirky, but in a good way. I really like them. They remind me a bit of a refined version of the PSP shoulder buttons. The sticks with the larger domes that you have to order separately are also good. The only thing that I don't love about them is they have small indentations on the shaft that you can feel when moving the stick along the top or bottom edge. It's not a major issue, and chances are you won't even notice. I've not heard anybody talk about it. But I do hope those can be addressed in a future release or update. And the back buttons. First off, I like back buttons. I use an Xbox Elite controller with paddles attached usually, but those back buttons aren't it. First of all, there are only 2 of them in total. One for each hand. I would have loved to see 4, and second, they are too clicky and way too hard to press to be used comfortably. Just for context, I've got a pretty decent PC. A 5090, a Ryzen 7800 X3D, 64GB of RAM, Wi-Fi 7, 2.5 gig networking. The Odin is just the screen, the portal, the couch interface to the Chaos machine on my desk. But you don't need to go that hard. All you need is a PC that can run games at 1080p, 60 plus FPS and okay Wi-Fi 5 coverage for this to work and still massively outperform the Steam Deck. Here's the magic part, the streaming. 4 to 6 milliseconds of input latency. And that's not marketing fluff, I measured it. HDR, 120Hz, zero fan noise, barely any battery drain. It's like cheating, but legal. God of War, Jedi Survivor, Cyberpunk. All maxed, all streamed, all running smoother than my social life. Literally, any game released for PC will run on this with zero compatibility issues, unlike the Steam Deck. Okay, I know some of you have been screaming at your screen. The Steam Deck can do all of that as well! And yes, the Steam Deck can stream too, but it's not built for it. It's heavy, it's kinda loud, it's way less efficient doing it due to its x86 architecture. Battery life? Not great, when all you do is decoding video. The screen also doesn't come close to the Odin, and it's more than 50% heavier. It's like bringing a katana to slice a carrot. Technically works, but a little overkill. The Odin? Silent, light, power sipping, gorgeous OLED. It's the yoga instructor of handhelds, focused, efficient, and doesn't scream at you. And because Apollo and Artemis, the host and client streaming apps, work so incredibly well, and Artemis being only available on Android right now, it really isn't a competition. Local streaming has not just come a long way, we've reached a point where the tech is borderline perfect. Yeah, the setup might be a bit convoluted and the configuration isn't very self-explanatory, but you only do that once and then it just works.
All of this just works. It's not, I'm not kidding.
No, Todd Howard, no, actually works. Those 2 pieces of open source code make this possible and amazing. And when you compare streamed Odin versus native Steam Deck, it's not even remotely close. Let's take Monster Hunter Wilds as an example. On the Steam Deck, we were playing on lowest settings, FSR, blurry upscaled mesh, and barely scraping 20 FPS, and dipping down to the low 10s. Meanwhile, the Odin just streams it from my PC, everything maxed, ray tracing, HDR, battery, kind of, 60 to 90 FPS. I know that's not impressive, but that's Capcom's fault. Capcom, please optimize the game. I can't put it down, but I also can't stop complaining about it. That game physically can't run faster in its current state, so let's look at another example. Same goes for God of War Ragnarok. On the deck, 800p, FSR, everything low, praying for 50 FPS. On the Odin, 1080p, ultra settings, max ray tracing, no upscaling, easy 120 FPS locked, streamed with zero effort, and enough left in the tank to even surpass 300 plus FPS. That is no joke. The tinkering plus setup magic. This is where it gets nerdy, in a good way. I use Artemis and Apollo, two apps that basically turn your PC into a silent console and the Odin into the world's laziest display client. With one button, my PC shuts off all other displays, creates a 1080p 120Hz HDR calibrated virtual monitor, and boots into Steam Big Picture mode. It's like Steam Deck, but if the Steam Deck didn't sweat under pressure. I set all of this up before the Odin even arrived. I was testing the workflow with an iPhone clamped to an Xbox controller and on my MacBook. It was janky and cursed, and it still kinda worked. That's the thing. You can stream to anything. Phones, laptops, maybe even a Fire TV stick with enough prayers and sideloading. And this setup isn't just for gaming. You can easily remotely edit a video or color grade like a lunatic if you wanted to. There's a whole bunch of productivity use cases for super low latency, high resolution streaming. But that's a topic for another video. If you want a full tutorial on how I set all of this up, drop a comment. I'll make a weirdly in-depth, slightly unhinged one just for you. There is no escaping this. This thing streams so well. I made it to the bathtub. Now, this is not a sponsored segment. I didn't pay me anything. I bought this with my own money. But if you have a device with Wi-Fi 7 that streams this well and a screen that is that pretty, it is hard to put down. Now realistically, should you be gaming in the bathtub? Absolutely not. This thing is not waterproof at all. Realistically, it can't be. It has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is a phone's chip on steroids, and it needs active cooling, which is why it has these vents on the backside. But if I ever decided to make, well, this thing in a streaming-only version with a less powerful CPU that is water sealed, not just would I buy it immediately, I'd be willing to model for the ad in the bathtub. Because clearly, I already am. Section 7. The weird little things. Okay, so after all of this praise, you're wondering, what are the downsides? Well, yes, kinda some minor ones. And the impact of those depends heavily on your use case. The biggest one is the screen shifts a bit green around half brightness and purple at around a quarter, kinda like a mood ring with seasonal depression. As far as I know, Ein is aware of that issue and working on a firmware fix. We'll see when they drop any further news on it. It's not a massive issue for me, because I usually have the screen between 60 and 100%, so it can really shine to its full potential in HDR content. We already talked about the rear buttons. They are present. I pretend they don't exist, like most of my adult responsibilities. And for Android gaming and streaming, this chip might be a little overkill. But hey, at least you can emulate some of your childhood favorites, like the nostalgia-addicted millennial you are, if you ever decide to take the device on the road. Other devices can do this too. You can do this with a phone and an Xbox controller. I did. But nothing else does it this clean, this chill, this elegantly absurd. The only real comparable competition for a streaming handheld I can see is the Retroid Pocket 5. That thing looks very similar, has a slightly more powerful chip inside, but also costs more. So not really an improvement in my honest opinion. Final thoughts. I don't need to replace my PC. I just want to enjoy it from the couch, or the bed, or apparently the bathtub. The Odin2 Portal didn't change gaming. It just made my gaming dumber, lazier, more convenient, and way more fun. If you already have a gaming PC and crave playing Cyberpunk at everything max while lounging on the couch, there really is nothing better right now.
Hey, Ein, call me. Or, no, don't actually call me. Just answer my emails.